I was talking with a fellow astrological magician the other day. The topic was how the market for astrological talismans is becoming a little oversaturated. Not even so much people selling their talismans, but people making talismans. And a lot of the higher level talisman makers have been noticing that their talismans have been diminishing in power. And I owed that to basically the resources kind of being tapped. In my opinion, when there's like a huge uptick and wave of a particular school of magic becoming popular, such that it's starting to spread, throughout the world, the divine portion of the hierarchy, God, if you will, closes that door so that the powers of creation are not, given to the profane and corrupted in that way. He said, it only shows how little there is magic available in our world. Billions of people, yet few thousands playing with stellar forces are enough to bring scarcity. And my response was, really, I think Marsilio Ficino was onto something when he claimed that the universe seems to be slightly broken in favor of a Saturn bias. Everything really seems to point back to that. Kabbalah points to that, with Binah being the very beginning of definition of existence of the things of the world from non-dual unity. The Bible speaks of Satan being the god of the world, which is really Saturn. The natal chart itself is an imposed prison for one to live in. Magic belongs to God because God is responsible with it. Man is to be subject to God's magic to be perfected by it, rather than playing God himself. Saturn perfects through its trials. A man that hasn't been perfected and can't see the whole picture and doesn't have God's virtues holding the powers of creation is an adolescent bastard god, destined to misuse the powers of creation in myopic and self-defeating ways. Not to forget that the sun, which is the opposite of Saturn, has the property of liberating one from the oppressions of the stellar rays, including the imprisonments of the natal chart, the natal afflictions. This is liberation from the prison of Saturn. The natal chart is the prison. The sun has the property of kind of allowing you to rise above your natal chart to assert your own individual will rather than having the will of God, let's say, certainly the will of Saturn, imposed upon you. This is not true liberation. It's just a season of relief, because any planet within the radius of Saturn is described or is destined to be just another expression of the seasons that propagate samsaric cycles. Saturn, they say, is the planet that teaches magic. I believe this is because it simultaneously gives you the wisdom to use it, because Saturn is the planet of the deepest wisdom. It's kind of what made me want to do this video, is why the planets are such good teachers. Is that it's like I was saying in a previous video, I think it was my Pinholes video, I think. But yeah, it's the idea of a planet is like a complex of different things, and it's not just an individual thing. This is why I feel that it's better to go to the planets than to go to a particular certain spirit by name. Like some of the demonology folk, I'm not really with that whole wave, are into going to the Ars Goetia. I'm going to go to this one particular spirit. This spirit specialized in magic or whatever. Teach me how to be a better magician. Well, I mean, Saturn is the planet that rules magic. Saturn is the planet that teaches an individual how to do magic, but at the same time, Saturn is the disciplinarian father that makes sure that only perfected, mature, responsible individuals who have a very wide and broad understanding, top-down understanding of the ways of the world, by exposing you to a variety of challenging situations such that you can be refined to and matured to the station of God, right? God is perfection. Saturn is what perfects. So it's like I said in my what was that? God's Children video. Yeah, I mean, magic is the power of creation. What we do as astrological magicians, me and my peers, is we take a particular astrological configuration, like when a planet is in this sign and it's aspecting this planet. We take that, we suffumigate a stone that is engraved with an image, and then in that way we capture those spirits into that stone. Well, in that way, that chart is kind of immortalized in that stone. It's ensouled in that stone. But God does the same thing with us. So we are really subject to God's magic. All of us as individual human beings are like individual talismans. But point being, the planets being a complex, a very harmonious, balanced complex, means that it's always healthy, particularly to interact with the planets as part of their ongoing transit. Strictly speaking, and this is why I'm not so big into making talismans so much, I would probably only do it for sale as a way to make money, is if you embrace the transits of the planets through all of the signs, this is the story of life unfolding. Nobody is really immune to the effects of the planets. So it's not the kind of thing it's like you need to, like fucking the demonologist guys, you need to reach out to King Paimon or whatever for King Paimon to have an effect on you. The planets are always affecting all of us. So it's not like you need to reach out to them to have their effects. Their effects are our entire energetic makeup. So the planets and their movements are what causes things to happen in our world. That's the amazing thing about it. And the progression through all of these different configurations, these relations of the planets to each other, their various aspects with each other, their movements through the signs, this is the story of life. And so as a complex, Saturn does teach you magic, and it does give you the powers of creation, but at the same time, it'll never do that without also giving you the deepest levels of wisdom through challenge and refinement and maturity and a sense of responsibility. Saturn says, okay, you want to hold the powers of creation, which is what magic is, then I need to help you see things as God sees things. And I need to mature you and refine you through these hardships and this loss and this challenge and this refinement. You need to be matured and you need to be perfected, because creation, the powers of creation in the hands of somebody who's not mature and not perfected, like I said, is a bastard god. So yeah, we see like maybe you go to this other spirit and it gives you the powers of magic. You're not just making the world necessarily a worse place. You're being self-defeating in ways that you don't even realize because of how short-sighted and nearsighted you are. You don't have the whole picture. That's what Saturn specializes in, is teaching you how to have a top-down view, to step back from your individual self, the individual self being the sun, and see things at a more collective, large scale to help you reflect on time, the scope and scale of things that take place over very long periods of time. It gives you foresight. Yes, Saturn gives you foresight. It helps you plan for the long, far-reaching consequences into the future. And these are the things that God knows. It's like if you ever wanted something in life, but the universe just wouldn't let you have it, there's a good reason why. And God knows, but you don't. Saturn helps teach you what you don't know, that God knows. So yeah, things like that, the planets are always healthy in that way. This is why I don't like talismans so much, is if you were to make a talisman of Saturn, let's say in Aries like it is right now, retrograde, that'd be a very dysfunctional talisman because it's crystallizing that moment in time. But if you have an ongoing relationship, let's say by prayer, as Saturn moves through all of the signs, then you're having a more complete and healthy relationship with the planets, in my opinion. Another example, I think the guy on YouTube is like this, I think he's like a Shaolin monk or something. I think it's Shi Heng Yi or something like that. As well as seems to be like a Buddhist guy. He was talking about people that come into non-duality, like it's become very popular among Westerners, and we teach them, he made the point of like teaching people high-level profound truths before they're ready for it. So in other words, what the monks would do, the Zen masters would do, is they would bring you in there and they would make you sit there for your training. You would sit there and you would meditate, and then a year would go by and you'd sit there and you would meditate, and a year would go by. Before you know it, 12 years have gone by, and the Zen master hasn't actually even said any words. You just come in and you sit and meditate. After 12 years, they'll pull you aside and they'll ask you like a koan, like a question that'll help you reflect and meditate on things to have a deeper level of understanding. They'll say something like, does a dog have Buddha nature? And then you can go sit down with that for 3 more years. Well, in that way, the wisdom goes much deeper that way. And it's coming from a place that your maturity and your refinement has happened. It's caught up with, you have refined yourself to the point that when that profound insight is given to you, you're responsible with it, and you're mature. So what happens is a lot of the Westerners, they've gotten into the non-duality thing, and they take it to a lot of obscene places. This guy says, and he says like, okay, well, if everything is the same and there's no categories, no separations, there's nothing separating good from bad. So if I have a girlfriend and I just cheat on all these women, really, strictly speaking, it doesn't matter, because right and wrong are just categories that exist in our mind. And yeah, it's technically true. If there's no difference between this and that, what's the difference between me walking out in the road and getting hit by a car versus me not doing that? It's all the same shit. What does it even matter? These are the kind of like immature perspectives that somebody who has been artificially and prematurely exposed to a profound insight like non-duality can come to, rather than coming to it organically. Or at least this is the argument he makes. Once again, the planets as teachers remedy this. Neptune is the planet of non-duality. It's what dissolves all separations and categories into a unified whole. The example has been given that the ocean, which of course Neptune rules, is not trillions of droplets of water. It's just one thing, because it just dissolves everything into a unified whole. Well, yes, Neptune is the planet of non-duality, but at the same time, you reflect on Neptune and you start to observe some of its other qualities. Like Neptune has to deal with reflections. So it's noticing that everything is you pushed out, and everything is a reflection of the consciousness of which it's made, right? God is a mirror. All the different fragmentations that occur as the universe expands out from that singularity. I mean, it's all these different distinct things, but they're all just shards of the one mirror that is God. So you could cheat on your girlfriend, strictly speaking, and this is, once again, these are high level truths that, and an immature and amateur and a newcomer, let's say, to spirituality would run wild with. Morality doesn't exist. Morality is just an idea somebody came up with. So what happens when somebody takes that understanding and they just run off with it and they do all kinds of terrible things? Well, Neptune again remedies this. If everything's a reflection, that means that any action you take is a decision to participate as every character in a scene to learn from that scene. So that means if I go out and I punt a baby across a football field, you have submitted yourself to experiencing the entirety of that scene from every possible vantage point. You are going to be the baby that gets kicked across that football field. It's because everything you do, that scene is stored away in your consciousness, and it's just the nature of reality that consciousness is trying to teach us lessons by experiencing every part of the scene. Everything is reflections. In the water, there is the water's reflection. It's not just what coheres everything together as one, Neptune is. It's also the reflective nature. And so you could do this or you could do that, but you will experience it. You will experience it, and then probably you won't want to do it anymore. Right? So as a complex, the planet is always healthier rather than just taking the one individual segment out of it. Another example I was thinking of as I was getting ready to make this video, Pluto, death and rebirth. I was talking to my friend. I was telling her, did you know that the soul is mortal? It's like, no, come on, that's not true. That's not true. No, I mean, the soul goes on. It's the body that dies. I said, strictly speaking, no, because you as an individual will die. As a matter of fact, you as an individual are constantly dying, because who you are when you were younger is not who you are when you were older. Did you ever have that thought? What happens if 5-year-old me dies and quote unquote goes to heaven versus if 85-year-old me dies and goes to heaven? You are always dying and you're always being reborn. This is what evolution is. In evolutionary astrology, Pluto is the primary centerpiece of evolutionary astrology because Pluto is the planet of evolution. So if you are changing and you're being transformed in one lifetime, think about what that looks like over the course of millions of lifetimes. Who you are and what you identify with as you has become unrecognizable. This can happen even in one lifetime. So over the course of millions of lifetimes, forget about it. So what's the one thing that is in common with you over the course of all of these millions of lifetimes? Well, over the course of all of the lifetimes, really the only thing in common is the consciousness. So yeah, the soul does die, because even on Earth, the what we identify with as us is constantly dying. So this happens at the level of the soul as well. What does not die and what can never die is the consciousness. And that's what I made the argument that in Adam and Eve, they were immortal in the garden, in Eden, which is the supernal triad. And then they ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and then they were propelled out of Eden, out of the supernal triad, into the lower realms, where now they have mortality. Now they can die after they ate that fruit, biblically speaking. And the reason that is basically self-identity was born in that moment. The original duality is Sun and Saturn, and the Sun is the ego, and the ego is supported and reinforced by the dualistic distinction with Saturn. Sun and Saturn as an engine basically keeps the ego alive, because the fear and the avoidance of letting that ego die, letting that sun fall into Saturn, which is death and decay, is too great. So we keep the sun away from the Saturn, and in that way the identity, which is what the sun has to do with, lives on. But strictly speaking, the consciousness never dies. That's why in Eden they were immortal, because the consciousness is the part that can never die. So Pluto does, as a total whole here, as a complex, teaches you that it refines everything to its purity, as Pluto is the planet of alchemy, and it burns away all the undesirables as a furnace, as a alchemical fire, in this cauldron, in this beaker, or the fuck that's called in alchemy. The thing that's burning away, and all the detritus, is the ego, and it's the self-identification. Once you burn everything away, the only thing that's left is the consciousness, and that's what it means to be emptied of everything but God. It's being purified to the point that there's nothing left. And that's also perfection, because the further we go inside of ourselves, the more enduring and complete and unchanging everything is. Strictly speaking, once again, that's Saturn. Saturn is what makes things enduring and long-lasting. The further we go deeper into that, it goes even more. Like I said in my previous post, my recent text post, in Uranus we have the timeless archetypes as the collective unconscious. These are the Jungian archetypes, archetypes of any kind, right? By their nature, Plato's forms are enduring, perfect, and unchanging. If we go even deeper past that, all the way to the level of the Plutonic, all that's left is pure consciousness. And consciousness itself, with no fragmentation, no separation, just consciousness, which is the only thing we have in common across all lifetimes, and is also the only thing we have in common amongst us as individuals. We have a shared experience in the form of just consciousness. Consciousness is the most complete, most perfect, most unchanging thing possible. Not the identification, not the belief systems, not the ego, not anything like that, just the actual awareness itself. The consciousness is the thing that never changes, and it can't possibly change. The awareness itself has no qualities. It's just awareness. So it could never change. It's one of the funny little ironies regarding Pluto, which has to do with evolution and change. Really, Pluto is responsible for all of the changes that happen around that awareness. The path away from unity and the path back to unity is marked by all kinds of changes. But the actual consciousness itself is eternal, perfect, complete, whole, and unchanging. And the consciousness itself is the most complete, most enduring, and most perfect thing that could possibly exist. So yeah, this was just a short little video talking about why the planets as a whole, it's like a complex, are some of the most healthy to deal with. What are some of the alternatives? Well, once again, we have individual spirits. I don't like that so much. Not to say that it's ineffectual. I mean, I remember I was doing a St. Michael's prayer, which is Archangel Michael in Catholic prayer. And I would go to the same bus stop every day to go visit my grandma. And for months and months and months and months, go to the same bus stop. And just, it was uneventful. It was a bench where you waited for the bus. I did a St. Michael's prayer, and sure enough, on the day that I did actually 3 St. Michael's prayers consecutively, I got to the same bus stop, and then there was a holy Bible that somebody had left by the bench. So this is not to say that individual spirits don't have any effects. Really, more so what I'm saying is that that can lead you into like dubious places, whereas really the story of life is being told through the planets specifically. So like the intelligence of God, the harmonious Logos Spermatikos is really immediately expressed through the planets, to the point that I consider astrology to be like a gateway drug. The ultimate spiritual gateway drug, because really it's like the most evidential form of spirituality. We can clearly see with direct proof and evidence that these planets and these configurations result in factual occurrences of things on Earth, and there's like an endless number of examples we can give as evidence of that being true. On the contrary, we have how a lot of Christians approach things, not to denigrate Christians, and I think some people may have a little bit of success with it. It's the idea of reaching out to God in general. It's kind of just like looking up and then speaking to whatever is out there. I found the problem with that is that it's too general and too vague. I have not had good results with just talking to God in general. And it was the belief of a lot of the people in the Middle Ages and the classical period that that God is way too far removed from us. Like, we're at some of the lowest levels of density, and God, in a strict sense, is like at the highest possible level. So we're so far removed. The idea was that we have the planets as an intermediary between us and God. And so there's a lot of things we can do to make very direct access to the planets. That's basically what planetary magic is we recite a prayer at a particular time that's relative to the planets. It could be the planetary hour, it could be the planetary day, it could be the planet in a sign of dignity, it could be the planet on the angles, a planet on the ascendant, or planet on the midheaven. These are all ways to have a very extremely direct line of access to the planets, and the planets are extremely responsive. The spirits of the planets are extremely responsive to prayer if you follow these basic rules. Whereas I found that God, or even Jesus, is not, to the point that talking to God or Jesus very often feels like you're not actually talking to a spirit. Very often feels like you're talking to an imaginary friend. I'm not saying that these things don't exist. I'm saying that the line of access is really muddy and really vague and not very direct. I have a very high level of trust in the planets because they pervade everything. Like, once again, it's not like you have to reach out to the planets to feel their effects. Their effects are evident in your natal chart. The effects are evident in the transits. If you ask a question, I can answer that question just by looking at the chart of when you ask that question. The planets pervade everything. So clearly they're a major, massive part of God's creation that are meant to be what the mechanical clockwork mechanism that arranges and organizes the world. So I always consider them to be the hands of God. If God wants something done in the world, he's going to use the planets to make that happen. Because if something happens, generally we can look at the chart of when that happened, and and we can see the astrological factors that were predictive of that thing happening. So there's not a lot of situations we can look at something happening and there's nothing astrologically indicating that. So to me, that seems to be a really clear indicator that God is using the planets and using the astrology to simply make that thing happen. It's like it is the intermediary between us and the divine. It is how God interacts into the world. God as this logos spermatikos, this brilliant, harmonious reason that pervades everything. This organizing, fine-tuned principle, perfectly balanced, perfectly harmonious. I place great value in astrotheurgy as a way of interacting with God and with the divine. And in fact, many of the characters of the Bible, we can see them represented in particular planetary configurations. I mean, Jesus had to have a natal chart, right? But even beyond that, there's a whole planet that represents what Jesus is all about, and it's Neptune. That'll be its own video. But like I that could be an hour-long video. Like there's so much that Neptune has in common with Jesus Christ. So it's like, if we are to act in Jesus Christ's example, you're not too far off from just going with Neptune, right? The planet as a whole, as a complex, is always this healthy totality because it's shaped in God's perfect harmony. It's always counterbalancing. Once again, the example of Saturn, it's not just magic, it's not just grasping at the powers of creation like a child that is, how would I say, going on a joyride with the powers of creation. Saturn says, you don't get to touch this until you have demonstrated your maturity and your responsibility and your ability to have, after having passed through the vision of sorrow, to see the bigger picture and the long, far-reaching ramifications and see things like God does. So it's like super healthy, super balanced combination of factors rather than just extracting the magic part of it. It's always super healthy and balanced. So I just thought it would be a cool idea for a video. I'm going to end it here. Thanks for watching. We turned this into half hour again.